Hey, next time, Donna. Next time.
Next time.
How are you guys doing this morning?
Good.
I heard a couple, coffee ain't kicked in yet. Well, I'm so glad that you were here. Amen. We have another wonderful, wonderful day here today. And as we get ready to dig in today, I've got to share something with you. And I hope you're ready. Our sermon series is an interesting sermon series we are going through, as you know. On Fridays, we are currently going through Revelation, and we are in chapter 3 in Revelation. We are looking at two churches, one that is the church in Sardis, one is the church in Philadelphia. And from that, God has told us we need to talk about two things.
Hello? You're being paged. His mama.
That is this. We are told to ask this question of ourselves. And we're going to be looking at that. We're in this sermon series, and it's dead or alive? What type of church are we? Interesting question when you stop to think about it. The past two sermons we've been talking about churches that are alive and the characteristics of those churches that are alive. But today, we got to talk about the other side. Churches that are dead. And why are they dead? And how are they dead? And what is the causes and reasons for why they're dead? And so if you'll turn in your Bibles to to James chapter 1, verses 22 through 24. Again, that is the book of James, chapter 1, verses 22 through 24. We're going to take a look at that today, and we're going to see what's going on, what that has to say in regards to our topic today. Let's pray. Father God, thank you for another wonderful day, and thank you for the many blessings that you give. And Father, as we are getting ready to dig into your word, Lord, we are overjoyed in the fact that we get to come before your throne. Father, I thank you for the fact that as we have spent this time together, Lord, just in not only communion, but also, dear Father, in one act, one part of worship, Father, we're getting ready to join into another part, which is hearing from you. And God, I pray that you would open up our ears, open up our hearts, open up our eyes, open up our minds, so that we'll be able to hear and truly understand what it is you are wanting us to know from this text today. But Father, more so than that, how can we look more like you and less like us? Father, I also understand, dear Father, that today we have an enemy who is attacking us. He's attacking us right now, danger close. More so, your servant who is speaking the truth of who you are to a world that so desperately needs to know of your Son, Jesus Christ, and of the power that is in his name, and the deliverance that is found in him. God, you know better than I do that the enemy doesn't want me to even speak. But Lord, I'm going to. I'm going to speak boldly. I'm going to speak loudly. I'm going to speak as clearly as I can. And Father, I'm going to let you lead. I'm not going to speak. I'm going to let you do it. Because, Father, this is your message that you have for your servants to hear today. And so, Father, I pray today, dear God, Lord, that you would let your word so go forth, because we know that your word will never come back to you void. And we know, dear Father, Lord, that there is someone that needs to hear this message today. See, God, there is someone that in their heart and life today, they need to know this message. They need to know how to look more like you and less like them. Father, they need to turn over their lives to you. God, they need to give everything to you. And so, Father, right now, dear God, I ask that, Lord, in our lives, Lord, may we humble ourselves. In our lives, may we truly listen. In our lives, may we truly hear. Father, there are those today that are not here. We know, God, that there are some, dear Father, that are battling illnesses and Father, some that are battling COVID. Father, some that are resting, some that are traveling, God. And I pray, God, for those that are traveling, you give traveling grace. For those that are, Father, that are battling COVID and issues and illnesses, God, I pray, God, that your hand of deliverance and of healing would be upon them. But God, what I also pray, and Father, what I'm also asking right now in your name, God, that those who know who you are as Savior and Lord would, even in the midst of their afflictions and their travel, speak of the one they love with all their heart, their soul, their mind, and strength, so that the world will know that you love them so. Father, we know that you tell us in Scripture that the world will know that you're my disciples by the way you show love one for another. Father, we know that your Scripture says that those who love me, they do what I say. And so, Father, may we constantly not only be in your word, but, Father, may we follow your words. God, I thank you, because I know it is in you, through you, and from you that all blessings flow. Hope is found. Forgiveness, dear Father, Lord, it originates, and God, it ends. Lord, I thank you that it is in you that we have hope. Thank you for the fact that you are our hope. Thank you for the fact that you are our love. Thank you for the fact that you are our joy. Thank you that you are our peace. Thank you that you are our deliverer. And so, God, again, as we get ready to dig into your word, to hear from you, Father, to, Lord, hear what it is that you have for us to say and for us to hear today, I pray, God, that you will remove me right out of the way and that you speak to your people. Speak, Lord, for your servants are listening. For I pray this in your name. Amen. Amen. We are in James, chapter 1, verses 22 through 24. And we're going to be reading from, again, James chapter 1, verses 22 through 24. I spoiled the mystery for you guys because I told you where we're reading from, right? So if you're able to, please stand as you get ready to read God's word. If you're not able to stand, I do understand. You're standing with us in spirit. So we're going to be reading from James chapter 1, verses 22 through 24. Say amen when you have it.
Amen.
All right. So glad. But be doers of the word, and not hearers only, deceiving ourselves. For if anyone, is a hearer of the word, and not a doer, he is like a man observing his natural face in a mirror. For he observes himself, goes away, and immediately forgets what kind of man he is. May God be praised and blessed by the reading of his holy word. You may be seated.
Pastor, you did this in March.
I did?
3/22/20.
Man, I thought I didn't do this already. So just so you know, Martha keeps up on every single one of the sermons that we've done. So I've done this one. I've done this one already. I thought I pulled a fast one on you guys, and I did something I haven't done already. Well, you know, sometimes when you do something, it's important for you to do it again. They say that in order for you to truly learn something, you have to repeat it. Sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. Sometimes we do good things and we repeat those good things. And sometimes we do bad things and we repeat those bad things. And we should not be repeating those bad things, like eating those cookies out of the cookie jar that I knew I wasn't supposed to eat, but they were so good and I needed to eat them anyway. And I got in trouble. Was it worth it? Church, you're not supposed to answer what I was going to say. I was about to lie like a big dog, but y'all read right through me. Y'all read right through. Is the chocolate still on my face? Man. No, see, sometimes in life we have those moments. We have moments where we're supposed to do the right thing, but we don't do it. And the wrong thing, oh man, that's what we're caught in. You see, there's going to come a moment in a time in each one of our lives when something unfortunate is going to happen. You know what it is? You're going to get caught doing something bad. And you're going to think this thought right here. Ain't nobody going to see me do. And then there's somebody who says, Homer, is that you? Ain't you pastor of the church over at Sierra Baptist. And just like I used to get teased back in the day about my name, I'm going to be the one over there going, duh, yes, it's going to be me. Church, in Revelation chapter 3, I told you there are two churches that are talked about. One that's in Sardis, one that's in Philadelphia. The church in Philadelphia is doing a great job. Even in the face of persecution, they are standing strong, even in the face of persecution. But see, there's this other church. It's called Sardis. And Sardis, which is not that far from Philadelphia, mind you, is this. They're a church that believes they are alive, but they are dead. That's an oxymoron. How can you be alive and dead at the same time? How can you truly be alive and dead at the same time? I mean, that's not possible, right? We don't have living dead today, do we? Well, you know, we should. We should have living dead today. But not dead in your worship. Not dead in your actions towards Christ. Not dead in your life. But you should be dead to yourself, living for God. But this church was not doing that. No. Like my boy, McKinley Batumbo. No. They weren't doing that. Instead, what they were was they were dead all the way through. Because Jesus is the one. See, this thing. Jesus is the one. Make sure you're paying attention to this. Jesus is the one. Make sure you understand this point. Let me say this one more time. Jesus is the one. This is going to be on the test. Who sent this letter to the church in Sardis? Jesus did. Jesus sends a letter to them. What does he say? He says, I know your works. And you think that your actions, you're working as if your actions would show that you're alive, but you're dead. Mercy. So, as we were going through this in our study, God told me something. You know what he told me? He said, hey, Homer. I said, what's that, God? And he said, yeah, he talks like that. I said, what's that, God? He said, we're going to have a sermon series. I go, we are? He said, yeah. He said, guess what it's going to be? I said, what's it going to be on, Lord? He said, dead or alive. I said, ooh, I like that, Young Guns came on my dead or alive. He said, no, my boy, that's not what we're going to be talking about. I said, oh, I'm sorry, God. He said, no, we're going to look at two churches. I said, two churches? He said, yeah, but guess what? I said, what? He said, they're the same church. I said, ooh, continue. He said, you know it well. I said, I do? He said, yeah, we're looking at yours. I said, mercy. He said, yeah. Are you dead or are you alive? And I want to tell you something, church, that rocked me to the core. You know why? Because as a pastor, what do you want to hear about your church? That you're alive. You want to hear that you're doing what God wants you to do, that you're going about the things the way that he wants you to do. But you know what happens? Sometimes even churches take their eyes off of God. And when they take their eyes off of God, you know what starts to happen? You start drifting. It's not big at first. It's slow and it's a little steady little thing you do. Before you were at the beach and you were watching everybody, like, hey, everybody, and everybody's like, hey, man. But you know the thing about the ocean has a current. And what happens if you're sitting on a flotation device, not trying to fight against the current? What will happen? You will be swept out by it. And before you know it, auntie and uncle and all those cool people that was over on the beach, even that one person that you couldn't stand that had that, crosswalk sign. I'm not saying nothing. Sunday school, you had to be there. Great time. We had fun there. 9 o'clock. Encourage you to come, join in. But if you go through and you're not fighting against the current, it means that you're going with it. And before you know it, you might have looked down for just a moment, and you look back up, and you don't see anybody no more. Instead, what you see is ocean. You look at ocean. You ocean. What has happened? You have drifted from the shore. And you were lost. Because now you don't know how to get to where you're going. Now you're just out there. And so what do you start doing? Some would say, panicking, hello. Others say, I'm going to start to do what I know. I remember I was a Boy Scout. Okay, I wasn't a Boy Scout, but I did beat up Boy Scouts. Does that help? No. Some would say, I'm just going to paddle. I'm going to paddle. And then you hear a shark that's now got a head bone, putting some barbecue sauce on you, saying this, which way you paddling, my boy? Let me help you. We do that. Aimlessly paddling in our life. Aimlessly paddling in a direction and not knowing where we're going. And you know what happens? This could have all been avoided if we would have done one thing. Heeded instructions. Paid attention. Stayed closer to the shore. Have not got drawn out. But we're talking about a dead church. So our question today, the title of this message is this: are we a dead church? Interesting question. Our first point of reference today is we are a dead church if we forget who we are. Every morning, every Sunday morning, I say this to you guys. Good morning. Yeah. I'm so glad that you're here today. And I mean it. I mean it every time I say it. I mean it so much that I even make sure that I put it in my notes. My sermon notes that go up when this sermon goes up, and when people go and they view the sermon, they can see the sermon notes. And the first bullet point on there every single time, you can ask Brother Brian in the back because he gets the sermon notes and puts them up on our different platforms. The first bubble point that's on there says these words: good morning. I'm glad that you are here with us today. That's awesome, right? Aren't you glad that someone is glad you're here?
Amen.
Guess what? That doesn't happen in a dead church.
Nope.
In a dead church, it has happened before that a person has literally walked into a church and walked right back out. Why? Because these were their exact words. There is no love in that church. There's no love in that church. Well, how would you know there's no love in that church? In the first 5 minutes of me being there, in me getting there, no one moved. No one even acknowledged that I was there. No one even said anything to me. I walked out. What happened when you went to the next church you went to? Dude, I didn't even get to get out of my car. They were already there. I had to beat them back with a stick. Literally, grandma's got a peg leg. She pulled that bad boy off and started beating her with it. The point of it is what happens. Sometimes you can see when there's true love and genuine love in a congregation, and then you will know when there is not. You can smell it. You can see it. It's true. It's evident. And sometimes there's this one thing that happens within churches. And I hate to say that it happens, but it does. Are you ready?
Yes.
Say amen if you're ready.
I'm ready. Amen.
They deceive themselves. They lie to themselves. Oh, we're so alive. I'd rather that a church would tell you, hey, we're struggling, but we're still meeting and we're still going forward. Because Christ is leading us. I'd rather that if you walked into a church and you saw 5 members, but those 5 members love each other, I'd rather you walk into that church with 5 members that love each other than have 350 that can't stand your guts. Don't believe me that there are churches like that? My friends, understand this clearly, because this is not the touchy-feely, lovey session of this sermon today. This is the we finna get real. And when we finna get real, let's get real. You see, Jesus told us, the world will know that you're my disciples by the way you show, oh my goodness, love for one another. But what happens when you walk into a church and there's no love? What are you gonna do? Turn around and walk out. See, let me tell you something interesting. Can I say something interesting to you guys?
Yep.
If you sat in a church or a place that calls itself a church, and all they did was pick on you, 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 call you names, pick on you, put you down, put you down, put you down, put you down, not love you, not truly show you the love that God has, not truly show you the true essence of who God is, would you stay there? I have a question. Why are a lot of people doing that? Our family started this church. They built this building. This is the building that my family built. I can't leave here. Why? My grandfather, he laid the floors. He put the posts together. See how that post leans? He was the one that was leaning with it. Oh, please, church. Please know, I'm not picking on churches today. I'm making something evidently clear. And I want to make it so clear that when you look at it, it's like looking at a glass. You can see right through it. You know what's in it. Because you know why? Jesus calls for us to be transparent. It means that when you look at me, you need to see me. Who I am is what you get. And what you get is what you see. And here's the problem, church. Sometimes what the world is seeing out of those who say that they are following God's word is not what is as advertised. And you know what I have to say to that? Mercy. Because those who do that, guess who they affect? Me. You. Those who have a relationship with Jesus Christ. You're affecting us. How are you affecting us? When you show what is not of God and then want to tell everybody, I'm the Christian. Me. I love Jesus. Yes, I do. I love Jesus. How about you? I love Jesus. No, you don't. Not you. Yeah, right. I don't see Jesus in you. I just want to ask this question. Has any of us ever heard that before? Well, you haven't? Praise God. Have you ever experienced that before? Praise God you haven't. Guess what? I have. I have. I have. Church, I have. Oh, please, can I share with you? Say amen if I could share with you.
Amen.
I have seen churches that have literally been so excited about the number of people that are on their roster. We have 35,000 members, but there are 35,000 members that are hurting, lost, not living up to what thus says the Lord. And then I have seen churches of 15, of 50, of 75, of 100, who are desperately and deeply in love with Jesus. And if you ask me which one I want to be in, I'm not going to tell you the 35,000. I'm going to tell you I want to be within 15. Because then 15 got it. Then 15 got it. They're making sure they got it. You know, one of the greatest things of that too is this. You realize when God gives you one of the most amazing gifts, and I'm going to ask you a question. Are children a gift from God?
Yes.
Church, we have an obligation to our children to make sure that they're learning not only who thus says the Lord is, but also that they come to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. But also that we, as those who will be teaching them, are living up to the very example that we are telling them they need to do. See, you can't be that Monday morning parent or Monday morning Christian, meaning that you heard all the right stuff, and on Monday morning, you're telling everybody how it's supposed to be, but on Sunday, when you're in the game, you're missing it. It doesn't help, does it? You can't paint a picture that you are not. You see, in order to be a great parent, and in order to be a great believer, you have to be a great follower. And who do you need to be following? Jesus. Because if you're following anybody other than Jesus, you're missing it. You're truly missing it. I can have great Bible study. And please hear me when I say this. I can have great Bible study. But if Jesus isn't leading it, I'm just reading words. I'm just reading words. Because there's no love, there's no emotion, there's no connection. And I want to tell you something important. Are you ready for this one? Say amen if you're ready for this.
Amen.
The life of your church does depend on you. Let me say this again. The life of your church does depend on you. Why? Because if you are dead, you will breed dead. But if you are striving to be alive, you will breed alive. How do you breed alive? Matthew 6:33 says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you." Which means this: in the way that I walk, in the way that I talk, in the way that I reason, in the way that I go about things, my focus and my aim should be me going after God. And as I'm going after God, guess what He knows? He knows that I need to take care of my family. He knows that I have a church family that I want to not only be a part of, but to be a member of, and to truly show my love, care, and devotion to. And so as I'm seeking after Him, you know what He's doing? He's moving and putting everything where it needs to be in my life. Oh wait, but I'm not talking about a church that's living today. I'm talking about a church that's dead. You see, sometimes in a dead church, say this with me, dead church.
Dead church.
Wow, y'all said it so beautifully. You said it all dead and everything too. That's cool. In a dead church, this is what happens. God will occasionally talk to you, but we'll try to deal with this ourselves. If we got problems, let's keep it in-house. Something happened to me. I didn't feel fed. I didn't feel like I was appreciated. I want to say something to you. And I want to say this to my brother Andrew, and to our visitors, and to everyone that's here. If at ever in a time in your life, and I say this to my church family here, y'all know this better than anybody else. If ever there is a time within your life where you feel like you are not being fed, whenever there is a point in your life when you feel like you're just not getting it, whenever you feel in your life that, hey, I just don't understand what's going on, this isn't making sense, and I need to get some clarity or some understanding, you know who the first person you need to get in contact with is? God.
Mm-hmm.
Know who the second person you need to get in contact with is? Me. You know why? Because it's my job to make sure that I share this word with you. But if you're not understanding what's happening or what's being said, I should be approachable. Hear these words. Approachable. 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 Not confrontational. Approachable. So that you can tell me, hey, you know what? I didn't understand that. Can you help me to understand it? Can I say something? Can I truly say something today, church?
Yes. Amen.
There have been many times where me, as a young man, went to a pastor, not my pastor, but other pastors, and I have asked questions. And do you know what I have heard? Psst, why don't you go do some research by yourself? I said, okay. And I walked away. Shook the dust off of my feet and walked away. You know why? I'm not entertaining that. Is that the attitude you're supposed to have to someone who is asking you a question? Because here's my one question or one statement that I want to make. See, a great man in my life who's no longer here, my father, said this: never assume that every person who walks through your church door is a Christian. Never assume that every person who you meet has a relationship with Jesus Christ. Because if you assume they do, you're going to be more than shocked when you find out they did it. And that moment in time that you are spending there, that moment in time that you are actually going about what you're going about and the way you're going about it, man, you are missing the mark. Well, one of the coolest things that we have today is we are looking at things that make us, as the church, look as if we're dead. One of these characteristics is when you forget who you are. Do you think it's important for you to know who you are?
Yes.
So, if I was in school, keyword in school, and I got lost somewhere, the person would expect that I would know not only who I am, but where I live. I had this happen one time. I'm telling you, this is a me story time. I'm telling you about me. One time I was on the bus, and the bus that I got on was the bus that I normally got on, and the driver was the driver that I normally saw. But this particular day, I didn't realize that the bus he was driving was going a totally different direction than the way that I was going. It went sort of the same way, but he didn't make the same stops, and he knew where I lived. He knew where I lived. I knew driver Tony. His name is Tony. I knew Tony. Tony knew where I lived. But it was interesting that we went to everybody else's stop, but we missed my stop. And I was still on the bus, and he's like, okay, buddy, we're getting to the end of my route. And I said, but we haven't went to my stop yet. And he said, oh, no, this is a different stop. This is a different bus today. Your bus was the other bus. I didn't know that. I just knew Tony. I knew Tony takes me to my house. And he said, where do you live, little buddy? And I said, well, I live by the first stop that you make. And he said, the first stop I make is right here. And he said, oh, wait, I think I know where you live. And he called dispatch. Praise God he did this. He called dispatch and said, hey, I have one person that's still on my bus. And I'm going to take him home. And he said, okay. They said, okay. He drove back and he said, is this your stop? I said, no. And he went across and he went like he normally does and he got over to the spot. I said, yeah, we're getting close. Lived in the Pine Ridge Apartments, in the Pheasant Run Apartments back in the day. And he goes, oh, I know where you're at. So he went down there. And boy, I got so happy. I was so happy. I was so overjoyed because, man, I was going home. And Tony may not have thought anything of this one. But I know that, hey, he was making sure that he had a bus that was clean. He didn't have to go back and, they had to call my parents to find out where I am. And then he went and he dropped me off. And when he dropped me off, he says, okay, tomorrow I'm going to be your bus. And if ever this happens again, do me a favor. I said, what? He said, come to my bus. I said, even if your bus leaves and you see me, come to me and tell me, hey, I think I missed my bus. Trust me, I never missed my bus again after that. But the point is that he said something that truly moved the needle in my life. Because what he did was something he didn't have to do. He didn't have to do that. He could have just took me back to the station and then called my parents and they did it. But he said, no, I'm going to make sure this young man makes it home. I'm going to make sure he gets where he's supposed to be. You see, in a dead church, they don't care about whether you're making it to where you are. Why? Because they are more focused on themselves. See, dead churches are not focused on what thus says the Lord. They're focused on what makes me happy. One of the biggest problems in dead churches is they started out as churches that were about what thus says the Lord. But somewhere they lost their way. Know where it starts? You're looking up at it.
Mm-hmm.
Pastors, teachers, leaders. Some churches have elders. Those that are teaching sometimes Sunday school, sometimes children's church, sometimes Sunday school classes. You might have awesome teachers from your preschool all the way up to your 3rd grade, but there's the 4th grade teacher that the kids keep telling you, I don't learn anything in this class. I don't learn anything in this class. I don't learn anything in this class. And you never address the issue. Well, guess what happens, folks? If you go to the 4th grade and your teacher's not teaching, what's going to happen with your child? Eventually, they're going to go to the 5th grade and the 6th grade and on, correct? But what will happen? There is a moment in their time when they're not being fed and challenged. And you know what happens after that? They're not learning. And that starts to breed where they're not learning in the 4th grade, where it started. And that continues to the 5th grade, and the 6th grade, and the 7th grade. And unless someone is recognizing what's going on inside of that 4th grade classroom, if no one is taking care to understand fully what's going on inside of that development of that area, if no one addresses the teaching that is happening there, then guess what happens with that teaching? That teaching is not only inserted and learned, but it is now continued. And that starts to breed an issue. You know what happens after that? They get into the youth. Know what happens after that? They become adults. Want to hear one of the most dangerous and most disheartening statistics that is prepared for today? That when children hit 18 years old, and this is done not only by Barna, who does a lot of the actual surveys and things of that nature, but they do this for churches and for everybody, political and everybody. And this was asked for. Listen, church, this was asked for. Listen, church, this was asked for by the Southern Baptist Convention themselves. They asked young people, 18 and above. And the results that came back, when I read this, I cried. You ready? Children hit 18 years old. 75% of those children, when they hit 18, leave the church. This was the part that broke my heart. 15% come back. What is that saying? There's a problem, isn't there? Every single one of our classes is important. Every single person in our churches is important. And it's important for us to make sure that the teaching that is going forward has to be focused on God, has to be focused on us understanding how to be less like us and more like Him. Well, let's get to that, shouldn't we? Well, in Exodus chapter 19, verses 5 and 6, this is what God has to say to Moses. He says this in Exodus chapter 19, verses 5 and 6. He says, now therefore, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be a special treasure to me above all people. For all people, all the earth is mine. And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words which you shall speak to the children of Israel. In Exodus chapter 19, verses 5 and 6, God tells Moses something important to tell to the church, tell to the people of Israel. But today, in 2021, God has a message for the church. Know what it is? If you'll obey my covenant, my commands, and my laws, then you will be a special people to me out of all the people of the earth, because the whole earth is mine. And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Who are we called to be, church? A kingdom of priests and a holy nation. What do priests do? Talk about God. What are we called to do? Talk about God. Who are we called to resemble? Him. But what happens when we don't? We're dead. Because who are we resembling? Ourselves. Who are we going after? Our own pursuits. See, Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 and 6 says this, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. You know what the first thing is? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and strength. You know what else we're called to do? Love our neighbor as ourselves. In our text today, we see that James is telling us one of the major trademarks of a dead church. You know what that is? It's looking into a mirror. Oh wait, let me back up. That's not it. I'm sorry, I got a little ahead of myself. Here it is. The first trademark is being hearers of the word only and not being doers of it. That's the first problem. It's good for us to hear what the word says, but it's more important for us to do what it says. You see, here's the thing. How do you look more like God? When you look less like you. Well, is that a bad thing? No. That's a beautiful thing. You know why? Because here's my statement that I make in this regard. What if I'm a person that has issues with anger? Should I look more like me or less like me?
Less.
I need to look less like me. But who do I need to look more like? See, I need to look more like him, right? In my reasoning, in my action, in the way that I get angry, in the way that I lose my top, in the way that I go after things. See, if I'm so unapproachable that you think that I am Mount St. Helens and I haven't blown my top yet, but baby, when you make me mad, woo, top coming off. Who wants to come up to you when you're like that? You know I'm that one genius up there that raises his hand. I do. See, we have something important for us to understand. It's not just the fact that you're hearers of the word, but doers of the word. But then he makes this point. It's kind of like a guy who goes and he looks in a mirror. Now see, the first thing for us to understand is sometimes in dead churches, we got to look in the mirror. Michael Jackson sung a song called Man in the Mirror. And trust me, I used to look in that mirror all the time, and I would do my best Michael Jackson renditions. I was waiting for somebody behind me to go, ooh. Never happened though. Except for my mom, ooh, get out of there. I'm sorry, Mom. 5 minutes later, who's back in the mirror? Ooh, me. We are called to heed the commands and laws of the master. When we are not doing what we are called to do, we are fooling ourselves. See, that's the thing that James makes known there. Is James says it's just like a person who's looking into a mirror and they study their features. You know, one of the coolest things to those who have children, you know, one of the most blessed and amazing things that you should let your kids do. And kids, I'm giving you permission to do this, okay? Say amen when you hear. I saw that. This is one of the coolest things for you to do. You ready? One day, ask your parents, can I trace your face? And they say, what do you mean trace my face? And then go sit in their lap, facing them. Put your hand on their head, and then put your hand on your head. And then put your hand on their nose, and then put your hand on your nose. And they say, what are you doing? I'm tracing to see what features I have that are of you. You know why it's important? You know who wants you to trace your face? God himself. Because you know why? Church, his throne room is open. I don't know if you understand this. The throne room is open. And your Father in heaven wants you to come and sit in his lap and to trace his face, to see what attributes of him you have. Parents get a joy when kids do that. And kids get a joy when they do that because they get excited when they're like, oh my gosh, I have the same mouth like my mom. Or my nose is big like dad. Or it's shaped like mom's, or I got your eyes, and I got this and that. And it's cool when they do that. You know why? Because for them, it is showing connection. For them, it is showing unity. For them, it is showing love, because that is love personified. But church, what happens when it's not going on inside the church? You're dead. One of the greatest gifts from God that you all said are children. Aren't they?
Yes.
What happens when we forsake our children? Forsake, fancy word for it, when we abandon our children, when we don't care for our children, when we're not properly teaching our children, when we're not spending time with our children, when we don't text our children, when we're not calling our children, when we're not sending them letters, when we're not sending them cards, when we're not telling them that we're praying for them, when we're not truly caring about them. Why should you care about me if I'm not caring about you? Why should they care about us if we're not caring about them? Amen? You like cards. You like candy. You like phone calls. They do too. They love a card that says, hey, missed you in church today. Hey, was glad you were there today. But sometimes in churches, we're so caught up on our numbers that, you know what? Hey, whoa, man, how many people did we have today? Dude, we had 15 last week. We had 5 new people. They came in 5. We had 5. You know what that means? I don't know. I take my shoes off in order to count it all. But we had a lot of people today. So what happened? People showed up. What y'all talk about in church? Why don't you know? I was more focused on the people. Totally missed what the service was about. Trust me, that's happening in churches. Oh, you want to know the best thing that happens in churches? You want to know the best? Look, this is what happens. We get in. Our God, He's an awesome God. He back up heaven and earth. Our God is an awesome God. And now your pastor's preaching. Oh, trust me. There are some members in churches that go to sleep in 2.2 seconds. Those that are old enough know what that phrase is from. But the point of it is that there are some of us in service that are missing what thus says the Lord, because we're out. We've disconnected. This is just as much a part of service as everything else. But if you're missing this, you're missing instruction. How do we know that we're dead? When we have total disregard of instruction. In Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7, it says this: the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. Some translations will say wisdom and instruction, knowledge and instruction. But the point of the matter is, he says this. He says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. That's the beginning. That's where it starts from. As we continue to look into our text today, we learned another one of the dangers that are ahead. And in Acts chapter 2, verse 42, this very important chapter, if you read 42 through 47, you read about the early church. And one of the things about the early church that you learn is how they were. And one of the most beautiful things about the early church is, man, if there was ever a true understanding of how to be alive, they showed you how to be alive. If there's ever a church that says, man, how do we grow? How do we add to our numbers? Well, the first thing is understand this. You're not the one that adds to your numbers, so stop saying it. You're not the one that adds to your numbers. Stop saying it. You didn't add anybody to the church. I brought my cousin to church. I brought my friend to church. I brought this person to church. Sure, in your car that you paid for, you transported this person to the building, but you're not the one that brought them to the church. Oh no, see, God was at work long before you ever started. Remember, before you accepted him, he was already after you. Because what is that code for? He loved us before we loved him. He loved us before we loved him. You know what the purpose of communion is? To remind you of the fact that he loved us before we loved him. Always remember that. You know why I remember that? Because on almost every single communion table that sits in front of the church, you will see these words. Do this in remembrance of me. He loved you before you loved him. 42 says that they dedicated themselves to the apostles' teachings. And I stopped right there. You want to know why that's important? Because before they did anything else, started here. Started here. You see, one of the biggest issues that happens sometimes in the church today is that many of our classes, many of our teachers, many of our leaders are not starting here. They're starting with everything else. Y'all seen that? Fell out my Bible. But we have so many things that we're starting with. We're starting with what's the new hottest trend of the day, or what's going on here, what's going on there. But we're not looking to God's word. You see, that is what breeds dead in your church. Because if God's life-giving word is not flowing out of your mouth, garbage is. And the last time that I checked, garbage doesn't make flowers grow. You know what makes flowers grow? A 5-year-old this week told me. You know what she said? She said, it takes the sun and the rain and the wind. I said, oh, that's cool. And she said, you know what else is in there too? She said, what? She said, God. I said, oh. How do I fight that? That was beautiful, wasn't it? That's what makes flowers grow. So I don't care what any professor in botany might be, or any agricultural engineer might say. I don't even care if he was in the FFA, Future Farmers of America. I know who they are. They was my homeboys. But the point of this is, I don't care where you are. That 5-year-old got it down.
Amen.
Takes the sun. What's it? Sun and rain and wind and God. Changes the way that you look at things, right? Listen, you know what that 5-year-old really told me? And she doesn't know that she told me because she's not doing deep theological thinking, because she's not expounding upon the true nature and understanding of the biblical constructs of the statement that she made. Those are fancy words for this fundamental truth. You know what that young girl blew the blocks off of my brain with? Is that, guess what? God made it simple. We make it complicated. You know what's so simple? The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Understanding who is the one who gives knowledge. Where is instruction coming from? Where is wisdom coming from? It is coming from God. Where do fools look for instruction? Everywhere else. The wisdom of the world is shamed, is put to shame by the wisdom of the wise. And who's the wisest of all? God himself. Isn't it better to go to God and get your instruction than to go to your friends? Your friends! See, if the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, and if the early church understood that they dedicated themselves to the apostles' teaching, and remember, when I say the apostles, I'm talking about those 11 disciples that were first there. Then they added another disciple, because remember, Judas, he died already. They had a vacant spot. That spot was filled. And now these 12 individuals, if you don't want to count the 12, those 11 individuals who walked with Jesus and talked with Jesus and learned for Jesus and then were commissioned by Jesus to go out and to share what they had learned from Jesus. That those men, when they taught, and the early church heard and understood what they taught, it changed their lives dramatically. So where they were never the same again. And when the early church caught hold of what they said, it changed them dramatically too. Disregard for properly searching and applying God's word leads to people growing apathetic to the word of God. You know what apathetic is? That's indifferent. They care less about God's word. But you know what we call for you to be? Empathetic. Have empathy. Feel. You know one of the most dangerous things that happens when we get more into ourselves and less looking like God? We start to have apathy. That's dangerous, church. It's dangerous. Believers, we should never be apathetic towards people. Never be apathetic towards people. Listen carefully. Don't be apathetic towards people. Jesus was not apathetic towards you. I don't care how they treat you. I don't care if they're nicer than me. I don't care what they do. Even if they say the wrong thing to you on the wrong day, grin, smile, let it go. Because if we don't do that, what now happens is that we are breeding the very thing that we are trying to not breed, not only within our church, but within ourselves. I want you to say something with me, if you will. I want to challenge you today. Can I challenge you, church?
Yes.
See, I'm going to challenge myself, so I want to challenge you as well. I want us to be partners. You know, they say the best way for you to not only lose weight, but also change and become a better you is to have a partner in everything that you do. You like that, right? I like that too. That's pretty good. In order to change who you are and to see the better you out of that one, that means you need to have a partner. You know, Dr. Phil will say, you got to have another you. Okay, you don't say it like that, but the point is this. God says this. Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, touching and agreeing, I'm in your midst. So if we truly want to have God in our midst, this is what we're going to challenge ourselves, okay? I want to look more like God. Say this with me. I want to look more like God and less like me.
And less like me.
I want to look more like God and less like me. Regardless if they yell at me, they curse me, they hit me, they mistreat me. I want to look more like God and less like me. And I want to tell you this. You don't have to repeat this part. I want to tell you this. God is going to give you more and more opportunities to look less like you and more like Him. But guess who was the one who just made that challenge? You. You see, in order for your church not to be dead, it has to start with you. Your pastor may not be the one that controls how dead your church is. You know who really controls how dead your church is? You. You put in to your relationship just as much as you get out. For those that have been married, to those who are married, to those who are thinking of getting married, one of the most crucial things for you to understand is that in order for you to truly have a loving, a really truly caring, and a dynamic relationship, not just between you, but also between you and God, is that you put in what you get out. If I put into this relationship, if I am emotionally invested, if I truly am physically invested, and if I am truly trying to see not just your good, but better than good in your life, I'm expecting that on the other side, right? Mm-hmm. Guess what happens? Sometimes that isn't always what we get. Sometimes I'm giving more than the other person. But you know what? Sometimes we understand that some person, what they're giving may be all that they're giving. And sometimes in a relationship, I might give more. But you know one of the things that we truly understand is that in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, starting at verse 4, there are some attributes about love. And you know one of the coolest attributes about love is that love keeps no record of wrongs. Mm-hmm. You're not giving as much as I am in the relationship. Okay, that's true. But guess what? I'm seeing how much you're giving, and I need to give just as much. Babe, I'm trying. I'm trying to give as much as you are. I'm trying to do this, but you know, I'm limited. Sometimes we got to get out of ourselves. We got to get out of what our limitation is. Sometimes the way that you do something in computering, one of the best things that you do is that you can overclock a computer, which means that there are limits that are set on that computer. You can't go past this because the manufacturer said that you can't do this. But I want to tell you something about the God I serve. You see, in your life, there is an owner's manual. And guess what? The world doesn't own you. God does. And he will overclock your life because he knows how to not only build you, but rebuild you. Catch that last part? Mm-hmm. It's not just build you. He knows how to rebuild you. That makes you better than what you were before. You see, friends, how do we change? This is the last point. How do we change? If we want to resemble a live church, then we have to make sure that we're not a dead one. Because in a dead church, it starts when you look into a mirror and then forget who you are. Church, you should have been in Sunday school this morning. Those that were, we are talking about what we were talking about right now. If we say we're in the light, but walk in darkness, we lie and are fooling ourselves. And we're making him out to be a liar. Because one of the most important things that we carry on us, listen, church, can I share something with you?
Yes.
You can only call yourself a church if you have a relationship with Jesus Christ and are abiding by his word. There are many people that want to fit in and say that they are a church, but there are parts of the Bible they like, and there are parts of the Bible that they don't like. And they're going to listen to the parts that they like, but the parts that they don't like, we ain't going to talk about them. Then that's not a church. That's just a club. Call it what it is. It's a club. Some go to high-priced clubs, have a huge number and roll, and are not a church. But see, here's one of the most important things. That church in Sardis, here was the thing that Jesus said about that church. You ready? He said this. He says, you have a name on you, but you're not living up to it. Some churches, we have Sierra Baptist Church, but some churches are called Emmanuel, Stones of Life, Living Water, Oasis of Truth. Let's see, Beulah. I said Emmanuel already. Morning Star, Bride and Morning Baptist Church, Suki Repose. But they're not living up to the name. In closing, you know the most disheartening thing that is found online? Most disheartening. Type in fights at church, and you will see pastors knocking the lights out of members. You will see that in the choir stand, it's now turned into a WWE match. You know that bass that already sings like Stone Cold Steve Austin is now giving stunners in the middle of the sermon as well. That's not what we're called to do. He's supposed to strike with this note. No. That shouldn't be found on the net. That shouldn't be happening in the church. But folks, it is. You know how that happens? Again, when we stop looking at God and start looking at us. If you don't want to look like that church that's going to be on the 11 o'clock news showing pictures, and I'm going to be like, I know that church. Oh, wait, that kind of looked like me. That ain't me. That ain't me. Have reporters out front of your house. Was that you giving the study to that choir member? Yeah, she better learn till next time. If we don't want to look like that type of church, let's make sure that we're resembling the church that we want to look like in the way that we need to. And this is what it is in Romans, verse 12. Chapter 12, verse 5. It says this: so in Christ, we who are many form one body, and each member belongs to all the others. Church, when you matter to me, when you really matter to me, that's when our church will change. But before there to really be change in your church, it has to first start with you. If I don't change, then I don't expect there to be change in our church. And until I'm seeking after God wholeheartedly, if I'm wanting to be fed, I got to make sure that I'm really searching after him. And yes, I encourage you, search after him with all your heart. Don't lean on your own understanding. Go to him first. And then pray and say, God, lead me. Lead me. You lead me to the person and the place where you want me to go. Help me to grow. Help me to find that one, Lord, that you want to share and impart this information to. Because guess what he's going to do? He's going to lead you right to where he wants you to be. Right to the person you're supposed to see. And sometimes, guess what? It's not the person you were thinking. Sometimes it's not the pastor of the church of 35,000 members that he leads you to. It's that pastor of the church of 7 or 8 or 15. And you're saying, dude, how come you haven't grown? How come you haven't grown? How come you're not sending out invitations? We are. How come you're not knocking on doors? We are. Well, why aren't you growing? Because there's one thing that's happening. What's that? We are growing. Why? Because God sent us you. You say, but I'm just here visiting. I know. But see, a visit is what it starts with. Then after that comes where I come again. Now I become familiar. And then when I become familiar, that now becomes, this is my home. And I hope and pray that that's what you feel like. But for those who are needing to get on that road and are tired of looking at themselves and at their church as a church that's dead and they want to be alive, I have an answer for you. You ready for it? Here it is. Choose Jesus today. Let's pray. Father God, thank you for another wonderful day, and thank you, dear God, for this message. Thank you, dear God, for not only this message of hope, but this message, dear Father, Lord, that is able to break the chains of bondage in lives, around lives. Thank you, dear Father, Lord, that it is in you, it is from you, and it is through you, Father, that we grow, that we not only learn more about ourselves, but also learn about you. Father, I pray that we are not a dead church. And I pray, God, that we are walking so closely towards you. And Father, that through everything that we're doing, through our actions and our attitude, that Father, we resemble more of you and less of us. I pray, God, that Lord, if there's a problem, and Lord, if it starts with me, change me. And Father, Lord, I pray, dear God, that you would continue to add to your numbers. Father, Lord, sometimes we're looking at the numbers, but God, I'd rather have a church that is full of people that are deeply devoted and committed to you, God, than have all the numbers of people in the world. I want the world to know who you are as Savior and Lord. But I want them to be alive and on fire for you, God. And that starts when we keep our eyes focused on you. And we remember, God, that it is all about you and it is not about us. So, Father, if there's someone out there that's needing to know you today, I pray that within their heart and life they would say, Dear Jesus, I know that I'm a sinner. And I know I've done wrong. I've done things my way instead of doing them your way. And Father, I ask that you would not only forgive me of my sins, but come in my life and be Lord and Master today. Help me to look more like you and less like me. Thank you, God, for coming in my heart and saving me. In Jesus' name I pray.